Good evening. For 8 years, young, vulnerable girls were groomed, abused and forced into prostitution. The youngest of them was just 11 years old. Today, 7 men were found guilty of charges involving rape and exploitation.
The gang plied the children with drugs and alcohol using properties in the Oxford area. When one of the girls went to the police for help, she was ignored. Tonight, the Thames Valley Force apologised for its failure. Juliet Bremner's report contains some of the evidence which you may find distressing.
7 men who were today convicted of inflicting unspeakable abuse on teenage girls, some as young as 11. Grooming, sexually assaulting and trafficking the most vulnerable children in Oxford, treating them as their slaves.
It's shocking. It's sexual atrocities. It's torture, some of it. You know, in fact, you can't repeat it. You can't put it on television. You can't write it down.
The Cowley Road in Oxford was their hunting ground. Often victims were playing truant from school. Invariably, they were in care or came from chaotic or dysfunctional backgrounds. The girls craved attention. First, there were compliments and gifts, then alcohol and a regular supply of cannabis and cocaine. Several became addicts. The victims used the drink and drugs to numb the pain. They wanted to be wasted while they were repeatedly raped, assaulted and sold to other men.
I'm just calling to report what may be an emergency. It's just in Oxford.
Right.
It's just, I was staying at a place last night. I've left now early this morning, but I could hear a woman getting slapped about next door to my room.
A 999 call made by a man who'd been staying at the Nanford guest house, regularly used by the defendants. He'd heard the 14-year-old being punched in the face and then dragged into the shower in this room because she'd refused their demands. Bassam Karar on the left was one of the men beating up the teenager. She referred to him and his brother Mohammed as the sick sex monsters. Mohammed forced a 12-year-old girl pregnant with his child to undergo an abortion in the back room of a house without medical supervision.
No.
The girls became very frightened, but if they tried to break away from the men, they and their families would be threatened and punished. The men beat, bullied and intimidated their victims to try and ensure they wouldn't escape. On one occasion, a girl was brought here to Shotover Woods for failing to do what she'd been asked. When they got here, the men threatened to cut her head off, saying, "This is what we do to pigs, we slit their throats." After they'd finished abusing her, they left her here alone, in the darkness, vomiting and crying. The girl identified this man, Anjem Dogar, and his brother Akhtar as amongst those who'd abused her. He told the police it must be mistaken identity.
But as I said to you, I've got a big family as well. Everyone knows my family, like me and my brothers around the area, you know, around the Cowley Road.
Yeah.
All the Asians know each other.
Yeah.
I don't know if this goes from the social services or whatever, like.
The police were aware that underage girls were being abused. At a flat in Thomas Mews, they found both Dogar brothers with a 14-year-old girl. She then drove with officers along the Cowley Road to show them where she'd been raped.
It's of enormous regret to me that we didn't see that pattern of organised systematic abuse back in 2006, 2007, and I've said sorry to the girls and their families, and that is a subject of regret to me.
The police and social services are convinced many vulnerable girls remain at risk. They hope this case will convince victims it is possible to identify and dismantle the organised gangs who've preyed upon them. There are serious questions for the police and social services. We know that all 6 girls who gave evidence here had contacted the police, and they were either known to the social services or in care. Oxford County Council says it regrets not moving earlier, but there is now an urgent inquiry to try and establish why it was or how it was that these girls were lured under the eyes of those who were supposed to protect them into the arms of these evil men.